Finally, Clemson Sports Talk has come back to Drive Time. Hello, everybody. Lawton Swan back in the saddle. Once again, it is the show that shakes the Southland. Clemson Sports Talk for you each and every afternoon as you make your way around the great state of South Carolina and beyond, listening to us on incredible radio stations like Fox Sports Radio 1400 the Midlands. Those of you watching the show on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, appreciate you being a part of what we do. Maybe you're catching some of the videos on TikTok. Thank you for being a part of what we do. And if you are on TikTok, come subscribe to our channel. Trying to get to 1,000 subscribers over there so we can do some live stuff as well. 803-450-0086. All right, weird scenario, right, that Clemson seems to find itself in, but not as weird as it would have been, say at the end of 2020 after you made it into the college football playoff, lost to Ohio State in the semifinals, but certainly a spot where Clemson fans aren't accustomed to being, although they've been right here previously and now trying to get, kind of their feet back underneath them. And so, I watched all of the Walking Dead series. I got out of it. I don't want to give too much away. Like I'm a spoiler alert kind of guy, but I got out of it. And because it started to get a little bit, kind of, I don't know, you just kind of knew what was coming. It was kind of the same old thing over and over and over. And then I finally said, you know what? I gotta finish up this series. And I did. And so then after I did that, I thought, well, you know what? Maybe the Fear the Walking Dead series will be pretty good. And I tried it, and I'm gonna tell you, I'm 5 seasons into that. And I think it might be better than the original.
How dare you?
I'm just saying. But in one of these episodes, one of the girls picks up an audiobook. It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. I've heard that quote my entire life. Right? My entire life. Like, I've heard that beginning to a book. But what book? What book could it be? Now, maybe some of you who are rather astute when it comes down to literature might know that that's Charles Dickens' A Tale of Two Cities. I did not. I had to Google it. I was like laying in bed last night watching the show, and I'm like, okay, what best of times, worst of times. And then I thought, this is where 18-year-old me would really say I've gone off the rails. I thought maybe I'll read this book. Like, if I don't know what books you've read. And then I started the book, and I started with that phrase, and I thought, man, this is, at this point, and I don't know where this book is headed. Please don't tell me. So far, it's been a lot of language, old British, that maybe I don't quite understand. So I'm thinking I'm going to have to get some assistance in following along with the storylines here. Not to mention that the person reading it to me, because I'm doing the audible, the audiobook, is using a British accent, which is really not helping your boy at all. Not at all. But I will say that the phrase, the best of times and the worst of times, got me thinking about where you are right now, Clemson Tiger Nation. Why, how you feel and why you feel the way you feel. And it took me back to something I said yesterday. Think about all the seasons. By the way, if you don't subscribe to the show, hit the subscribe button, whatever format you're on. All the seasons from about 2015 forward, right? Like, if you go back to 2014-ish, that's Cole Stout throwing the football at the feet. I believe it was Jordan Leggett in the end zone against Florida State. That's Deshaun Watson coming in relief. the ball being snapped over to Sean's head. Like the things that Clemson would do, the Clemsoning, boy, there's a phrase we haven't used in a while. The Clemsoning things that people had talked about for so many years where the Tigers would just find a way to lose a game. Maybe they were better equipped, going undefeated into a Georgia Tech matchup, better equipped, but falling short against the Yellow Jackets on the road. And you just found ways to lose games. And then 2015 rolls around. And you start finding ways to win games. Finding ways to survive and advance. To make the big tackle against Notre Dame when they need a 2-point conversion. To figure out how to get James Quick out of bounds just short of the first down marker. And on through all of the things where Clemson found a way to win ball games. And it almost became habitual. It almost became a habit that you just knew down 16-0 against Ohio State. Your back's against the wall in the Fiesta Bowl. And you're thinking, I tell you what, if we just get one break, just make one play, we're right back. And then boom, you get that break. And then you're back. And then all of a sudden, you've stolen the energy in the building, and then you go on and win the ball game. It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. And I think that's just magnified, quite frankly, for a lot of people. I know Dabo Swinney had his comments about the 98.5% of the fans and that 1.5%. I said last week, and look, the 1.5%, you've always been there. And that's okay. That's okay. That's a part of every fan base. You're not unique. You're not unique. The 1.5% to me were the people that were always the curmudgeons, even on this rise up. Could never be satisfied that it wasn't 1981 over and over and over again, that it took 30 plus years, 35 to get back and win a national championship. And I have no problem with that. I don't care if you're a 98.5 or a 1.5. I do not care. But I think what I've learned here over the past 3 seasons, and of course, I get to stand in the fire 2 hours every day on Fox Sports Radio 1400 in the Midlands and around the world on the iHeartRadio app talking about your Clemson Tigers. Would love to have you become a podcast listener if this is your first time checking us out. But I think the thing that I have learned in that time, over these 3 seasons, is just how often we heard to make sure you were enjoying the ride and the number of people that likely took it for granted. And so in the best of times, some people didn't enjoy it as much as they could have and should have. And now, as things have slipped, and I don't believe they've slipped as far as a lot of people think. Like, I, too, can recognize some of the things that Dabo Swinney says that make a lot of people angry. I can recognize 2 losses in overtime. I can recognize if you hit a field goal, you likely beat Florida State at home, one of the top teams in the country. And I know you're 4-3. I get it. Hey, guess what? The worst of times, those things can happen. But I don't think by any means that this situation that you find yourself in is some Clemson exclusive club. It feels that way to you now. It feels that way to you now because of how good it's been. The perspective is skewed. I don't excuse it at all. Again, you can go back into the Twitter timeline. Matter of fact, if you want me to, here, I'll pull up my own Twitter account and I'll read you precisely what I said when the final play call was made on 4th down. And I want to go back to something else I said yesterday, because there's a lot of people, and I don't blame you, if indeed the story that we've gotten about Cade Klubnik pulling that football on his own, thought he saw something, making a play. I say it's muscle memory because they run that zone read so much. He saw the ends crashing down. I think they baited him, and I think he went for it. I truly believe that. I believe that Cade Klubnik was baited by Florida State to throw the screen pass. He did. Some people say, well, he read the right look. And I'll say they presented the look so that he would play it right into their hands. I think Miami had a similar result, but that's neither here nor there. But when that play went down live and the game ended, I mean, I immediately said, what an embarrassing play call. That's unreal. Because to believe that in that situation, zone read, RPO, whatever you want to call it, to have Cade even have the option to pull the ball, that was something that was logical, made no sense. And then Sweeney, of course, came out and said that wasn't. It was supposed to be a give. Cade Klubnik says it was supposed to be a give. So you have that. So I am not some fair weather fan, none of that. I call it like I see it. But I don't think things are as bad as a lot of people do. I certainly believe that Clemson's got to do a much better job in protecting the football. You can't lead the nation in fumbles and expect to be, overly successful. And Dabo Swinney said yesterday, talking with our buddy William Qualkenbush, Dabo Swinney said, look, the fact that we were in these games says something about the team. And I agree. It does. The fact that when Clemson, I think at one point in that Miami game, if my memory serves me correctly, got down 3-0 in the turnover margin. Believe it was 3-0 at one point. And to have basically that 14-point shift where you're falling into the end zone only to fumble, have an 80-yard touchdown rushed against you. That's that 14-point swing. That's the type swing that you saw take place in the Orange Bowl, against West Virginia, and that game just gets sideways on you. Similarly to what happened in that matchup with Duke. And I think the frustrating thing for Clemson fans is that for so many years, you just felt like, well, they're going to make a play. They're going to make a play. And now the more people I talk to, the conversations and the comments that I get are, well, I just knew we weren't going to do X. I just knew we weren't going to do Y. And I could finish this with something I mentioned yesterday as well. I don't think I said this yet today, but it's very easy to pin everything, the loss, all that on that final play. And Cade Klubnik said as much as well. He said, look, I understand people are looking at that final play. There's a lot of plays that lead up to that point. He's absolutely right. But the bigger concern that I have is this right now. How many of you were confident that had Clemson scored, they would have gotten the 2-point conversion? Very few. As a matter of fact, I've had nobody say to me, Swanee, you know what? I believe that Clemson would have converted that 2-point conversion. It would have been 28-28. We'd have been going to triple overtime, and we would have been running 2-point conversions to win the ball game. Nobody has said that. But in the best of times, when Clemson's rolling, you would have expected those plays to be made. You would have said, yes, not only were we going to score, we were going to score the 2-point conversion and win and tie the game and send it to overtime. We were going to win it in triple OT. That's the amazing scenario that I've seen play out here over the past 3 seasons, is how the confidence for a lot of fans has dwindled. And I can only imagine that the players don't feel that same way. And then that comes back to the question about, the psychology of where this team is. Where they are in between their ears. That's the most important 6 inches on the football field for these guys. Certainly on Saturday night, the 5 inches between where the ball was snapped and the goal would have been a key 5 inches, but the 6 inches between the ears is where things kind of broke down because Cade Klubnik went off script, thought he saw something, shouldn't have done it. But I question the fact that Will Shipley was in the backfield. I question why that's not a carry for Phil Maffa. I question why when you get the catch by Tyler Brown to get you to the 2-yard line, knowing the struggles that your offensive line has had, why don't you have a jumbo package to present? Like at some point, you got to be able to take his in and beat urine and take urine and beat his in. Isn't that what they say? You got to be able to be the better coach. And I feel like Clemson has not been the better coach team in a lot of these ball games. Now, I went back. And I watched some TCU football games. I did that last night. And there are some things in those TCU football games that I see that I've yet to see from Clemson. That I've yet to see. Because I think this offense looks eerily similar to Brandon Streeter. Like, if I didn't know any better, I would think Brandon Streeter might be up in the box calling the plays. But I did see some things in that TCU, in those TCU games that I watched, in that TCU offense, might be a better way to say it, that I thought, I don't really feel like I've seen that from Clemson. And a lot of it has to do with, and you can go back and watch it, and maybe this is just the difference in, a guy like Duggan and Cade Klubnik at this point in Klubnik's career. But a lot of it has to do with how slow to develop the screens are. It seemed to me TCU was much faster in getting from the initial RPO where, okay, are you going to hand it off, to the pass out to the flats, where I feel like with Clemson, those plays take forever to develop. The defense is typically reacting downhill, and TCU, in the 2 games that I got a chance to look at, they were just beating people left and right. And one of them's against Oklahoma and Brent Venables. Go watch that game. Just you don't have to watch Venables' offense. Who cares what Oklahoma's doing? Just go watch TCU's offense in that game. And I'm telling you, 18, 20 plays in, you'll go, there's a lot I haven't seen at Clemson. And maybe Sonny Dykes had a bigger role in that offense. But I think Clemson's offense moves a little bit too slow. I don't think it's fast enough. It's very predictive at this point because it looks a lot like what you saw previously. And the other thing too, and I couldn't quite put my finger on it watching it, but some of the ways they ran the football just felt like it gave the running back a better chance to kind of get in the open field. Now, I also debated how much of that comes down to Clemson's offensive line, and that is certainly up for grabs. Coming up in hour 2, Mike Yuva, about 40 minutes from now, Mike Yuva will join the program right here on the show that shakes the Southland. GamecockCentral.com is the website. We'll peek over the fence. We'll find out how the Gamecocks are feeling heading into their matchup against Texas A&M. All right, we got to get out of here. If you're watching the live stream, catch us on iHeartRadio. Appreciate you hanging out with us. We'll be back tomorrow. Until then, as always, y'all take care now. And, of course, go Tigers.